My reflection here is about, is interdisciplinarity or multiple lens a pathway to impact? And how can you get engaged when you're an early career researcher? So as an individual researcher, we've already talked about it. The usual endeavor is to go for scientific impact. And we start with a concept, you go investigate it, you do papers, you choose your paper, and you do quite lots of conferences and outreach. And by the end of it, you get peer recognition after donkey's years, and you have scientific impact, which is brilliant. And as Kirsty said, there isn't just scientific impact, there's also other types of impact, like policy impact, and Michael was saying there are other ways of getting there, but this is about essentially trying to get your message through. And there's also, of course, public impact and many other types of impact. And we know that the ways of getting there are different. But all of this is about individuals all going off and doing their little thing or big thing and having hopefully some impact. So Kirsty was talking about elephants in the room. I've got another elephant for you. And that's the elephant of when every researcher is doing his or her own thing in their corner. And the obvious thing, of course, is that sometimes some of the parts doesn't really add up. And I'm going to give you two examples of where it doesn't always work out when everybody does their own little thing. So working in silos isn't just about academics, it's about academics, but lots of other sectors, of course. So I'll just give you a quick example, which is, after the war, we needed more fiber. Because we didn't have enough trees in Wales, so we planted loads and loads and loads. So somebody came up at that point, a researcher came up with this brilliant idea of growing these Sitka spruces on the Welsh uplands because they grow fast and that we could do lots of fibre with it. But that research led to quite a lot of downstream consequences. Most of the time, there are unintended downstream consequences. In this case, the fact that the sedimentation that follows means that the salmon populations have really declined across Wales, which means we can't really do much of the fishing. So it has impact on ecosystems, but of course on people. Another example of working in silos is, for example, in the wastewater sector, where clever researchers, engineers thought it would be a good idea to do some circular economy solutions with the sludge that comes out of wastewater and wastewater treatments. And now we're finding out that because these sludges also contain lots of the microfibers that come from the jumpers that you're washing in your washing machine, the unintended downstream impact here is that, for example, half of the Taff River insects have got plastic in them. And those are unintended downstream consequences, but they all stem from the same idea that researchers sometimes don't talk to each other and sectors sometimes don't talk to each other. So we created in Cardiff University an institute, the Water Research Institute, which was about bringing people from lots of different disciplines. We've got 11 schools involved, whether it's social sciences, engineering sciences, biological sciences. And we brought all these people together and thought, okay, these people need to talk to each other. We can't find solutions that are really good for what we are specialized in, but that are really not good for others. So this institute's been going on now for 4 years, and it's about talking across disciplines to tackle complex challenges. And all these complex challenges are about things as simple as how do you keep water for health? How do you do circular economy in a meaningful way? And just to illustrate with an example. For example, if you go back to my plastic example, It's about understanding, getting, for example, the chemists that are in the School of Chemistry to think about alternative plastics and how these plastics might degrade. It's about roping in the engineers to test them and see if they're good, these new plastics. It's about roping in the microbiologists to check how these plastics degrade. And bringing back in the engineers to see, well, okay, well, what happens therefore when they get water gets treated? Is the plastic still there? Is it gone? Then it's about bringing back the ecologists and say, okay, well, can you find these in the fish downstream in the river? And bringing in the social scientists and saying, okay, well, are these new plastics, will they be accepted? Do people want to use them? Is there any use? And then going back to our economists and saying, okay, well, how about a circular economy around this? And then going back to the blackboard and saying what works, what doesn't work. So a holistic approach is definitely a really great way of doing this, but that means that we need early career people who are open enough to have not just have a really fantastic level of expertise in one discipline, but who also have that sort of T-shaped, that understanding, that broad understanding of the range of skills that are necessary to understand what your neighbor is doing, whether it's in a different sector or a different discipline. So at the Water Research Institute, we've got a big NERC, Centre for Doctoral Training, which is about training the next generation of freshwater scientists that are keen on sustainability. And all these scientists, we've embedded in their training the fact that not only do they work on their own PhD, but they also get to learn about what all the others are doing, and also all the different disciplines that may be involved in their arena. So I think that a multi-lens impact is probably the most important, because it's the only way, this shared impact, that we get to long-term solutions. So it's not just about breaking down the internal and external academic silos, as in just breaking down the barriers between disciplines or between academia and stakeholders. I think it's also about empowering our early career. I think, you are the best place to do this, to break down most organizational or sectorial silos. So I think it's a fantastic opportunity to be able to do this these days.